So I don't have one of those fancy presentation slides, but Stacy had one. If you don't know me, I'm David Moros-Samard. I work at Red Hat. I'm actually part of the RDO team, but I'm a contributor and root system administrator for the upstream OpenStack infrastructure. So who thought it would be necessary to run any infrastructure at all for OpenStack? So anyway, we'll be talking about this. Um, Throughout this talk, you may or may not see a couple of cows. Um, you know, it's just cows. So before we begin, just a little disclaimer. This presentation is a little bit special. It's pretty much a live demo throughout the presentation. So it can either be really awesome or an epic failure. We'll find. We'll find out. So, I mean, hopefully it'll be awesome, right? But, but what you just did right now is perfect, right? So we don't have a time limit for this talk. I mean, we're here for as long as if you get bored, you can leave if you want. But no, no, I want you to stay. It'll be interesting, I promise. But if you have any questions or you want to interrupt me throughout the talk, you notice anything weird or whatever, you can just go ahead and raise your hand or something. And of course, praise the demo gods because there's going to be a lot of live content in here. And I'm actually going to start right away because there's a typo here in this talk. So see here, there's interactive. So there's a typo. I did a typo. It was intentional for the purpose of the talk, of course, because I don't do any typos. So we're actually going to fix this because this talk was made with a software called Present TTY, which was written by one of the OpenStack infrastructure contributors. So it allows you to do slides with restructured text. It's amazing. So anyway, I have my talk here. It's a Git repo, and it's actually hosted by OpenStack too. It's great. So this was already a change that was in Garrett. So it just sent a new patch set here 12 seconds ago. and I have all the files here that was in my commit. And if I look at the diff from my previous patch, well, we're going to see that we just fixed a typo. Isn't that awesome? So we're going to come back to Git a little bit later. I just wanted to show you that, and we'll come back to it later. So back to the slides. Oh, and I could even like reload my slides, and then there won't be a typo anymore, right? See, no typo. Amazing. Live code review and fixes. Awesome. So we're gonna follow through what I call a rabbit hole. And I don't do that a lot in presentations, but I want to do it because I'm the speaker and I choose what I do. Just raise your hand. Do you know what rabbit hole is? Have you no? You don't know what rabbit hole is? Okay, so I'm going to show you what a rabbit hole is. Okay. Here, this is a rabbit hole. You might have seen this before. Okay.
Ashley Graham.
So that's a rabbit hole, right? So rabbit hole is you want to do something or you want to fix something, and you find something else, and then you want to fix that something else, so you go deeper, and so that's a rabbit hole. You keep forking like that, and then at the end of the day you haven't accomplished anything because you fixed a bunch of unrelated stuff. So this is my life every day. It's fun. You get to do stuff anyway. Yeah. French translation for rabbit hole. It's a very there's two. Yeah, I don't we could this is a live demo. So I mean, let's go on Google, insert rabbit hole in French, rabbit hole in French. What does it say? Trou de lapin. So I don't think it's a trou de lapin, right? Down the rabbit hole. Yeah, okay. Oh, see French translation here. Dans le terrier du lapin. I don't think it's a literal translation, right? So it's an expression. I don't know. So there's two expressions usually that you have in programming and engineering. You have rabbit holes and you have yak shaving as well. So yak shaving is you have a yak with, it comes from Ren and Stimpy, the old cartoon, and then you have this huge yak with a hairy cow-like animal, and then you start shaving it, but it's like layers, right? So you go, it's kind of like that, but I don't know the translation in French. You can, we're in Quebec. We don't judge. You can use rabbit hole if you want. So where are we, right? Because we're going to be forking left and right a little bit around here. And so we're here right now. We're doing a recap, right? So this is a recap of the talk of where, and we found a typo in this disclaimer, and then we fixed it. And then I explained Git review, and we're gonna have some of those recaps during the talk just to keep everyone following. This talk here, it starts with an idea. So every OpenStack team has regular meetings on IRC. So we have these IRC channels that are recorded and organized in a way that teams can have a meeting on IRC. It's going to be logged and everything. So there's a chair and all that. So OpenStack Infra has meetings as well, and those are in the open and they're public. You can join the meetings if you want, and you can even add a topic to the agenda. It's open source. It's an open community. You can do whatever you want as long as you don't insult anyone. So my idea here is that I want to add an important item to the next OpenStack Infra meeting. And it's actually quite an excellent timing because there was just a meeting today. So I'm gonna add an item for the next OpenStack Infra meeting. So to do this, I'm going to go to the Eavesdrops website, which is a service that is hosted and maintained by the OpenStack infrastructure team. And I mean, the vast majority of the stuff that I'm going to be showing you today is in one way or another maintained, developed, or hosted by the OpenStack infrastructure team. So we have Eavesdrops where we have the logs for the various RC channels. So OpenStack is on the Freenode RC network, and there's a lot of channels. I mean, we can go through all of those. No, we're not. But I mean, if I go here, which is the OpenStack Technical Committee channel, and again, even though like there's a group of technical committee for the OpenStack community, it's public. The logs are there. People are talking there about governance things, and it's out in the public. There's no private channel or anything. You can idle there if you want. Look at the logs. Everything's there. So we have IRC logs for everything, but I wanted to add an agenda to the infrastructure meeting. So we have the details for all of the meetings here. So I'm gonna find the one for the project infrastructure team, which is this one. So it says weekly on Tuesday, 19 UTC. With the daylight savings, it's kind of it's 1 hour later now. I screwed up today for that. There's an ICS file, and there's a chair. Oh, and the rabbit hole starts here because Jeremy Stanley is no longer the chair of the OpenStack Infra meeting. So we're gonna have to fix that. There's a new project team leader for the OpenStack Infra team. His name is Clark Boylan. So we're gonna go just before we add the item to the agenda. We're gonna fix that. In true rabbit hole fashion. So I go on the OpenStack Infra channel, and we can go here. See, it was logged in Eavesdrop. I asked Clark, "Hey Clark, it says Fungi is the chair for the OpenStack Infra meeting. Are you not running those now?" And Clark says, "Oh yeah, I guess I am." And he's been, but it just requires maintenance to keep that kind of information up to date. And so this is something that doesn't require any OpenStack knowledge. You don't need to know how to run a cloud to update a string in a configuration file. But you need to know where to look though, right? So I have this fungi string that I need to modify for this Eavesdrop meeting thing. So sometimes what I do is I go on GitHub. And so something that's really important to remember is that this is not where the Git repositories for the OpenStack projects are hosted. This is merely a replication or a mirror. So this is why we don't use like pull requests and stuff like that. Actually, all of the repos are on git.openstack.org. So all the repos are here, and when you want to use OpenStack from source, this is where we recommend people to pull their data from. And again, all of this is hosted and maintained by the infrastructure team. But even though I love open source and all of that, I prefer the GitHub user interface to sometimes search things. So I want to search where to modify that fungi thing. So my first reflex is to look for something that would look like Eavesdrop. So I go here, and there isn't anything. And so this is the OpenStack infra mirrors. So I could look maybe in OpenStack, and then all of the projects that are hosted by OpenStack are mirrored here. So I can go and search for Eavesdrops, and okay, so there's nothing there. So that means it's probably inside one of the configuration repositories or something. So I'm going to use another service. It's called Code Search, and the rabbit hole deepens. So code search is a tool that was the name of the software is actually Hound, which was developed by Etsy. It's great software. Look it up. Basically, it's Go, so you know it's great, I guess. But most of all, it allows you to index Git repositories, so you can like easily search code across hundreds of repositories if you wanted to. So we're gonna go here and search for fungi, and then we'll find out that fungi is actually in a lot of places because he's been there for a while and he's been doing a lot of stuff. So I'm going to cheat here a little bit, and I'm going to scroll down because there's so many mentions of fungi. Okay, here he is. Oh, IRC meetings, right? So IRC meetings, chair, Jeremy Stanley. See, so it's not magic. It's just like a string that I need to modify. And if I click here, I'm going to see, okay, so the project is infrastructure team meeting. This is the agenda URL. There's schedule and everything. So let's go and fix that. So how do I fix that? First of all, I'm gonna clone this repository. I'm gonna go here, and I told you I wasn't going to edit files in my console anymore. So maybe I can. Huh? No, see. So that's an excellent question. So the question was, do you not want the Git URL because you're gonna end up pushing changes, right? And this is an excellent question. In OpenStack, people do not push code directly to repositories. They send their code reviews to Gerrit, and then Gerrit is the one that actually pushes the changes back to the Git repository when it merges, right? So you don't push the change. You kind of create a pull request, if you will, in Gerrit. And then, there's going to be jobs that will run, and then there's going to be people that will say either your patch is great or your patch is horrible. And then, if your patch is great, it's going to end up merging. So there's no one with actual push privileges to the Git repos. Even infrastructure core team members do not have push privileges to the Git repos. What we can do, however, is to give us temporarily like super user privileges so that we can tell Gerrit, bypass those CI jobs and just like merge the thing. Because sometimes there's like a catch-22 where your job is broken and you can't like fix it unless you merge that thing. So sometimes you need to submit things, but it's kind of rare actually. There's usually ways to recover from that. So I was going to clone this. So let's do that. So I have the IRC meetings now, and I forgot where it is. So I'm gonna. Oh man, I'm sorry guys. Can I? Is this good? Everyone can see? Great. Okay. So let's find where that is. Okay. So it's here. So the chair now is it's Clark Boylan. I hope I have that right. I just don't want to do any typos. I believe that's it. If I do a typo, someone will call me out on it and do a -1. So I mean that's okay. And that's something that I have to explain to people sometimes. Because they are intimidated by people pointing out that their code is wrong, but most of the time people are actually nice, because if you're sending a patch, you're trying to help. So I mean, if you're trying to help, we're not gonna tell you your code is bad and you should go away. No, we're gonna tell you this could be improved by doing this or that, and then you're gonna fix that, and that's next patch set, and we're gonna prove it, we're gonna merge it, right? So don't be intimidated by people that I get -1s or even -2s like sometimes, and I can't sleep at night. So we fixed this, and I'm gonna send a commit for that. So the commit you can still see well. Great. The text is not as big. I don't know if I can. Oh yes, I can. technology. So I'm going to go and say the OpenStack infra meeting is now chaired by Clark B. Jeremy, no, Clark has taken over the OpenStack infra meetings since becoming PTL, I guess. All right, so we're gonna send that. And I can also put a topic in my review, so that if I have, like, sometimes when you send patches, like you see add limestone, that's kind of grayed out here. It's because I've been working on adding a new provider for the OpenStack infrastructure that's called Limestone. And there's a lot of patches like scattered left and right across different repositories. So something that Gerrit easily allows is to add a topic to your patches so that you can just like search for the topic and you can see all of the patches that are related to that. So since this is like just a one-time thing, I'm gonna send a review. And then we can go and see the review and we can come back to it later, and it's probably going to pass the CI jobs. Okay. So the question was basically how do you send a Git review? Okay. Okay. So I'm logged on to Gerrit here. And so you need there's some great documentation for that, by the way, and I can OpenStack contributor documentation or something like that. It's a great guide, and it goes very wide, like what you need to do. But to make a long story short, you need to be able to log into Gerrit. To be able to do that, you need I believe it's an Ubuntu 1 account, because we're using Launchpad for SSO right now. You also, depending on the projects, because some projects require a contributor license agreement, so CLA, or if you're contributing on behalf of a company, it's a CCLA, corporate contributor license or something. Like if you want to send a patch to Nova, you probably need to sign up for an account at the OpenStack Foundation, and sign or check the boxes and stuff. And then you can log into Gerrit, you set up your SSH key, and that's it. You're ready to send Git reviews. And the way it works is that if I go back to my shell here, I actually have a Git review file, and this tells the Git review tool where is the Gerrit server, what's the port, that doesn't really change, and then what's the project. And then sometimes when you're sending a patch to a branch, there's going to be the branch selected here, because by default it's going to send to master. So this was our patch. Let's go back to the talk. So we sent the patch, and we ended Fungi's ring as a chair. He wasn't actually doing that still. So so just a quick recap about what we've seen so far, because this is going many different directions, right? We've seen Eavesdrop, which is the IRC logging service. It also hosts something that I forgot to mention. So there's the logs for the past meetings. So if I go here and I go, I don't know, it's not, the UI is not very pretty, I concede. But see, we have the logs from today's meeting, and I don't contribute a lot to those meetings, but I just throw tables. But see that, so that's those meeting logs are public. Everyone can see them. We have nothing to hide, and you can just contribute. Yeah, and we're between friends here. What happened is that so there's a tool called Storyboard, which I will talk just briefly later. And apparently they've imported. They're working. One of the projects of the OpenStack infrastructure team right now is to move off of Launchpad for bug tracking and issue tracking and stuff like that to a tool called Storyboard. And so one of the projects they were trying to import the bugs, and one of the bugs had an emoji that sometimes when you have like non-UTF-8 or non-ASCII characters, it breaks things. So anyway, that's so yeah, that's my life. But I actually wasn't involved in that thing. But anyway, uh, going back to the slide. So we've seen, there's a bot that records the meetings and allows you to log things. There's a Git OpenStack server. There's the review.openstack.org server. There's Garrett's. There's the Git review. There's the replication to GitHub that I told you about. So everything is replicated to GitHub in real time. There's GarrettBot. I didn't tell you about GarrettBot, but we can see what it looks like here. I'm gonna log on to IRC. Live demo. Oh, I'm not on my VPN, so I can't. Oh, maybe it's on Eavesdrop. So let's go and see on Eavesdrop. See, live demo. We're gonna find a way. OpenStack infra today. Did I send anything, Moreau? Oh, I'll see. So that's just a patch from earlier today. It's not the patch that we just sent, but anyway. So every time someone sends a patch to Garrett, projects can independently configure notifications on their IRC channels. So for example, when someone sends a patch to the project config project, it sends a notification to the OpenStack infra channel. So then people are aware that someone just sent a patch. So we can go. It kind of helps for reviews because people see that they're, oh, this looks interesting, and I'll go and review it right away. Oh, just like this. I asked people, can you please review this really quickly? So we've seen Code Search, the tool from Etsy that allows us to search things. We haven't seen Wiki and we haven't seen OpenStack ID, so I lied. That's because I was supposed to go back. We were supposed to add an item to the agenda. Remember? You're still following. I hope you are still following. Okay, so I have the agenda here. So we see the agenda was cleaned up. There's no items right now. To be able to edit this page, and again, anyone can edit this page. There's no, as long as you can log in to the service. So this is, oh, I need to enter my password. This is what I was telling you about earlier. The boxes are black. That's weird, but this is the SSO service that we use to log into Garrett and Wiki and things. And someone took care of integrating the Wiki and the SSO and everything. So that's the OpenStack infra team basically. We provide the services that people use to contribute to OpenStack and make it work. So now I have an edit button here. I'm gonna add an item, and it's a very general item. I'm gonna add it to open discussion, and I'm gonna go and add. Are we good? Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna add. David did a talk about OpenStack infra, right? So I'm gonna tell them that I did a talk about OpenStack infra, and I was recorded on YouTube. Amazing. I'm gonna check the box that I'm not a robot. I'm not. Amazing. I passed it. I'm gonna save this, and there's the item for the next meeting, and we're gonna talk about it next week. You can come and join us. Tuesdays at 7 UTC. And so now we've seen Wiki at OpenStack, and I lied because I thought that was going to be OpenStack ID. So we could actually go and send the patch to fix that in the slides, but we're gonna leave that for another time. But OpenStack does have an OpenStack ID service, which is what we'll eventually move to once we move off of Launchpad. So it's going to be like the OpenStack specific authentication service. Where are we? Well, we're here now, right? So we've seen all of that, and where do you move on? That's on my screen it's higher, but that's great. So we're gonna go back to the patch that we sent earlier to fix the typo and see if it passed the integration test. we're going to use Garrett. I told you that Garrett allows you to search different things. So here, this is a simple search query that says, um, go and search into the project info publications repo, and then the branch help one and how to, which is the branch in which my presentation is in. And then someone gave me -1. Thank you, Pascal. He wanted to be higher. Okay, so what did he do? The shell color is bad. Okay, amazing. Thanks, Pascal. I mean, thank you. You showed that, how it works. So I see that here that, the job failed. So I'm going to go here and look at the logs for that job. When you're looking at jobs for, actually, I'm trying to remember like where I'm supposed to fork the rabbit hole. Okay. So yeah, let me backtrack a little bit. So the way that OpenStack does CI is with something that's called Zool. So Zool looks like this. And if I go and expand this, so basically it's what orchestrates the CI. So there's no Jenkins. There's only Zool, and Zool is a lot of things. I mean, I could talk to you for an hour just about Zool, and it's awesome. But at a very simple level, Zool provides pipelines. So we see here there's a check pipeline, there's a gates pipeline, and there's a post pipeline, for example. So if I send a patch to Garrett, it's going to fire some jobs in the check gate, in the check queue. I'm sorry, check pipeline. And then it's going to pass those jobs or fail them, and I can click here. It's going to stream the job as it runs, just like Jenkins would do, for example. And if I click on here, it's going to send me to the logs just like we did earlier. So when my patch passes all the jobs in the check pipeline and everyone is happy with my patch, it's going to be enqueued to the gates pipeline. So the gate pipeline is kind of like a last sanity check just before merging the patch, because sometimes what will happen is that you send a patch, it passes the check jobs, but it's only approved like 2 weeks later, right? There's a lot of things that can change during the span of 2 weeks. So your patch is still going to be sent to the gates pipeline, but it could fail because within that time frame something happened that makes that your code doesn't work anymore. So this is the purpose of the gates pipeline. It's what gates the commits, the git commit from merging into the Git repository. And then you have the post pipeline, which once a commit has merged, I can do something. So for example, I believe Cola, which is a container project, they will have a post job that would build containers and then send those, or do something with that. So this is like a post pipeline is for things that happen after a commit has merged. So you see a lot of jobs here, and then another component of which is not inside Zool. It's its own project. It's called Nodespool. And what Nodespool does is that it fires, it creates and destroys virtual machines, but for every job. So all of those jobs that you're seeing here are run onto single-purpose virtual machines. So sometimes there's actually multiple virtual machines for any one job. So you can have one job with 5 virtual machines if you wanted to test like an HA configuration into a CI context. So Nodespool is the component that takes care of building images. So like a CentOS image or Ubuntu image or Debian image, and then you can have Zool use those images and then run your jobs on those virtual machines. So the reason why this is appealing is because, for example, on a Jenkins slave, which will be long-lived, at first it's going to be clean, It's going to be, it's going to be to run great. But every time you go down a rabbit hole, you have someone installing a new package or, changing a little config here and there. And then your slave is, it's not clean anymore, right? It's changed over time. So as you run jobs, the result is not necessarily consistent, right? So when you run your jobs against new virtual machines every time, you're guaranteed that you're starting from a clean slate every time. So this is the purpose of NodePool. So let's go back to our patch, right? Because it failed, and Pascal updated the review, and he added the +1. Thank you, Pascal. Let's move on, please. Yes, please go ahead. You're slightly ahead of me. I will go back to that later. So the question was, who creates those jobs? And we're going down a rabbit hole, right? We're gonna have to fix the job. So just watch. So the job failed, right? And I have Pascal. Please don't break my live demos. If I don't know what you're doing. Yes. So I have the logs here. But when you have large jobs that have a lot of content or a lot of tasks, and I forgot to mention that the Ansible jobs are driven by Ansible. So the jobs are actually expressed as Ansible playbooks and roles. So it's not, you could do like bash if you wanted to, like within an Ansible shell task. So you could have like an Ansible shell task that would have bash inside of it. But it's kind of beyond the point. So we have this tool here that was also created by the OpenStack community. It's called Ara. So Ara provides, that's great. So Ara is basically a generic Ansible plugin or a callback plugin. It has nothing to do with OpenStack, but it gives you this reporting interface for a set of Ansible playbooks, basically. So it's not like Ansible Tower, which allows you to control your playbooks and control your execution and everything. This is just like a transparent recording of the Ansible playbook. So, at a first glance, I don't, if we go back to the logs, I could scroll down and eventually I'll find the error. I could do like Control F and then do something. But if there's like 30,000 lines, my browser is going to crash, or it's not awesome. So anyway, so there's this tool called Ara, and again, in the spirit of making our lives easier, we have that. So we see here, at a first glance, I don't need to do Control F or anything. It tells me, this is the one playbook that failed, because a Zool job is actually a group of playbooks. So you can have as many playbooks or roles as you want. It depends on how you want to logically split your things. But anyway, I see at what time it ran. I see what was the playbook. I see, what the parameters the playbook ran with. I see the host facts for this host. I see the plays. I see all the files that were ran. But most importantly, I see the tasks. So if I go here, I'm going to see right away that this is the one task that failed, and I kind of cheated because there's a module in Ansible that allows you to fail a playbook, and this is what I meant when I was saying that we're going to have to go and fix that. So there's a failure here. But if I go here and I click, it tells me why it failed. But if it would have been something legitimately complicated that I wouldn't have been able to come with yesterday, it could have been like it could have made obvious a typo or a bash script, or sometimes we have DNS resolution errors, or plenty of different errors. Ara allows you to have this pretty interface to find errors easily. Again, this is all driven by Ansible, and the job failed, so we're going to have to fix that. And thankfully, I have this patch right here where I actually created the job. So something else that Zool does, and this is brand new from Zool v3, which is really awesome, is that Zool v3 allows you to I'm trying to find the word, speculatively test jobs. So what this means is that I have an idea. Let me show you something. So if I go here, so this is another patch in another branch for this same repository, right? So OpenStack Infra Publications. You see here, there's no jobs that ran. It says, oh, I'm sorry, you're not. Someone needs to tell me when you're not seeing things. All right, it's not obvious. Okay. So here Zool ran nothing. It's no up, right? So it's basically when you don't have any jobs, it's no up, right? But I went here and I created a Zool.yaml file. So a Zool.yaml file is, kind of, if you know Travis, it's kind of like the same concept where you have this set of files inside your repository that allows you to describe your jobs and where they run. So I have this job here that says publications integration, parents base. So we have a base job that will take care of, setting up the base things in the virtual machines. And then I tell it to run the run.yaml playbook. And a timeout of 900 seconds. And then I have the check pipeline. So I could have just like any pipeline or any jobs here, but I added that for the check pipeline and the gate pipeline, I would have this job. So if I go in the run playbook here, I see this is an Ansible playbook. There's nothing magical about that, right? So I have a role that's called bindep. Bindep is another tool that was written by the OpenStack community. It's how I would describe it. It's kind of like in Python, you have requirements.txt to describe the Python module requirements for a project. So a bindep, there's a bindep.txt file, which is the binary dependencies. So for example, you might need some SSL development library for your tool to work. So you can express it that way. So anyway. So we're going to have to fix that, and we're going to fix that live so that we can see the results right away. And we're not going to merge. We're not going to be merging any code here. We're going to send a review, and we're able to iterate on the job live here as we're here. So we're going to do that. And I said I would not edit things in my shell anymore. So I'm going to actually edit it in Gerrit because I can do that. So this is a quick fix. I could have done that earlier, but I forgot about it. So I'm going to fix that here. Publish edit. So now, we fixed that, and it's going to run again with the new, oh, there's a white space here. I wouldn't have done a white space if it was for that. All right, anyway. So we're going to let it go. But we're going to do something here. So this whip patch where we fixed the typo earlier is based on top of this job patch. So that's why it's running the job. So we're going to actually rebase that so that we run this new job against this patch. So we can just do rebase here, and boom, just like that, rebase the patch. So it's going to run the job again. We could actually go in Zool right now. And we can search here. It's going to eventually show up. Oh, there's publications here, but it's probably the other one. There's not that many changes going on, so I can probably just scroll down. There's a lot of jobs. Oh, see here. So there's the job that's running there, publications integration. See, it's streaming stuff. So it's doing its thing, and then so here you see this little link here. It's showing that this job is being run by Zool, but it's based on top of another patch. So you can you can rebase patches on top of each other, and yeah, that's it, I guess. So another big strength, however, I forgot to include an example for that, is that Zool also allows you to use something that's called depends on. So this is something that allows you to depend on the patch that's in another repository. So pretend I send a patch to the Nova project, but this patch is not going to work unless something else lands in Keystone. But this patch in Keystone hasn't merged yet. So how do I test Nova and Keystone functionally together with both patches? I can do that with the depends on. So when I do my git commit, I'm going to add just a little footer. It's kind of like that. You see there's a change ID here. So there would be a depends on with a reference to the other Keystone patch. So Zool will know to prepare that patch so that when like DevStack runs, it's going to be installed with both of those patches. And that works with jobs too. So you can like define a job in one repository and then do a depends on and then test something in another repo. And actually, I've been doing that today because we've been troubleshooting DNS issues. So I live edited some jobs. I never plan on merging those jobs modifications. Actually, I was looking for an example and I have one right here. So let's just do that. Let's go down the rabbit hole. So I have, all right. So I was telling you earlier about Limestone. These great people want to give us some virtual machines. So I edited some jobs here, some job definitions here. I sent them to another set of nodes in Nodepool. And then I created a patch in the Zool jobs repository, which is another repository, and I added a depends on. So what this did is that it ran the integration jobs here, and they failed. That's all right. But more importantly, they ran with that patch. So this is the great strength of Zool, and it even allows you to pull stuff from GitHub now. So you can so for example, the Zool is connected to the Ansible GitHub repo, so we can do like a depends on an Ansible patch. And yes, there's a question there. Okay, so the question is, the change ID, can it be a change? No, the depends on, can it be a change ID rather than a URL, right? It's used to be a change ID for the depends on, but it was changed after GitHub was integrated because you need a consistent way of expressing a depends on, and since GitHub doesn't have the concept of a change ID, you can't really do that there. So in GitHub you would, if you do a depends on a GitHub patch, you would do a depends on the pull request link, I think. So that's why it's done that way. I believe that change ID still works, but it's only a matter of time before it's taken out. It's like deprecated, if you will. Regarding the website changing or something under your feet, well, I mean, if you're depending on the patch, it's probably not going to change like tomorrow, and if it changes, it's probably been merged already. So anyway, that's that. So we fixed the job, and we talked about Garrett. I have a slide here about Garrett, but we already most really talked about it. The great stuff. It was created by Google, by the way. It's used notably by Android. So it's built for large-scale OpenStack, not OpenStack, but open source projects. Collaborative code review at scale. Great search queries, and there's the concept of ACLs. So typically in OpenStack, anyone can contribute to any project. But the people with the privileges to merge your patch are called like core reviewers or core contributors. So these people will have the Garrett privileges to be able to do that. And then we talked about Nodepool, just another quick recap. So Nodepool is a project that was created from scratch by the OpenStack community. It builds customized images from scratch, and it does that like at a regular interval. So this is another a very important aspect of Node Pool I missed earlier. Um, it's kind of important to stay up to date with the different distros because sometimes there's going to be just a little update to, some package. And if you never build a new image frequently enough, it's going to be harder to like bisect where the issue came from. So if you build your images like every month, well, I mean, you have like, so it breaks now, and then you need to figure out what happened during the last month that things went downhill. So if you build your images like every day frequently, something like Nodepool, you don't. I mean, it's going to break. Like it happens. I mean, we have to roll back some images sometimes, and we have the ability to do that. But at least we're able to fairly easily like bisect where the issue happened. I told you he created and destroyed ephemeral virtual machines in different clouds. It's truly resilient, redundant, failure tolerant, and self-healing, and multi-cloud, and all those buzzwords. I mean, it's great. Like it's going to recover. We have these great infrastructure donators that provide capacity to the OpenStack community, and sometimes they go down for a reason or another, and it's fine. And we don't need to shut down Nodepool or anything. It's just going to not succeed at launching virtual machines for a certain amount of time. And when the cloud comes back up, it's going to hammer that cloud until it gets some VMs. And then we talked about Zool. Zool is great, and I could tell you a lot about Zool, but this is not the time. And then Ansible is a great aspect of Zool. You don't need to. I mean, you need to learn Ansible if you don't know Ansible, but I mean, you don't need to learn Groovy, for example, which I'm not. Jenkins has a lot of Groovy sometimes, so anyway. So that's that. And then the one thing about Ansible that's worth mentioning is that Ansible, there's hundreds of modules that allows you to do anything and everything, from managing servers to switches to there's even a Terraform module. But there's OpenStack modules for Ansible upstream, so you can have a playbook and do like OpenStack server and then declare your server. It's going to create your server in the cloud. I think that's pretty awesome. And then if you want to run Puppet through Ansible, I mean, the OpenStack community, we actually use Puppet, and we wrote the Puppet module for Ansible, so you can like have an Ansible playbook and then have a Puppet module for that. Anyway, and then we talked about Ara. So I have Ara. You can come talk to me about Ara later if you want to. I have stickers. I don't have many left, but that's something. And then the status of where we are. Well, we're so far deep the rabbit hole that it doesn't fit on the screen. Oh, I can. Is that where? See, we're almost done. So we're there. We're almost done. So oh no, now I can't zoom anymore. Okay. So adding on top of the list that we saw earlier, we saw Zool, we saw Nodepool. I didn't mention it explicitly, but we have logs at openstack.org, which is a 14 terabyte log server because when you're running that many jobs every day, you kind of need a lot of storage. I didn't show you about Grafana and Graphite, and I'm glad that I'm seeing those here. So we have Grafana, and again, this is hosted and maintained by the OpenStack infrastructure team. And if you want to if a project wants to add a graph to Grafana, we actually use something that's called Graph YAML. So it's a YAML file that you can use to express your graphs. So people can, it's a way to version control your graphs, I guess. So anyway, so we see here the live status of Zool. How many jobs we're launching every hour. We use Logstash, and there's a graph for that too. How many test nodes are running, how many builds we're running. And so something that's really interesting here is that so we have what's called Zool executors. So these are basically we can scale them horizontally. We can have as many executors as we want. But if I look at this here, we can see the executors are running, on average 45 concurrent jobs, and those are actually Ansible playbook commands. If I go on a Azul executor server and I do a PS, I'm gonna see like all those like 45 Ansible playbook commands. So it's nothing magic. It's really like Ansible, right? And other graphs. And then we have graphs for node pool as well. So if I go here, I'm going to see how many nodes are in use right now, how many are ready, how many are building, and we have a capacity of around 1,000 virtual machines right now. So if you see like the in use graph that's like capping out, it's because we're at max capacity. So anyway, that's the graphs. Yes, another question. Okay, so that's an excellent question. So how do we version control our Grafana graphs? And I will be happy to share to you how we do that. So I will go here, and then something that I tend to know where things are because I've been doing this for a long time now. But if you don't know where things are, you can do what I did earlier and use code search. It's really awesome because it saves my life. I use it like every day because there's so many repositories and so many configs, and even then, even if you think you know where things are, they're not there. So anyway, use code search when you don't know where things are. So we have a folder here called Grafana in the project config repo, and if I go here in Zul status, you'll see it's a YAML representation of the graphs that I just showed you. It's in the end, this is graphite queries, right? So there's going to be some functions in there sometimes, like here you might notice, like you might recognize these if you're used to graphite. So these are graph YAML files. So those, they do not like configure Grafana by itself. Graph YAML takes those as inputs and then does like the API request to Grafana to ensure the states of that. And so I'm actually not sure like when Grafana actually Graph YAML actually runs. I mean, we could find out, but we will be forking in another direction of the rabbit hole. But I mean, it could be a cron or something. I don't know. We can check later if you want. I'm happy to share. I mean, this is all open source, and something that I can take like 2 minutes to show you something real quick. So if I go here, we're gonna see that we have, a lot of Puppet modules for everything. So historically, OpenStack Infra has been using Puppet a lot because that's what people knew at the time. We might be in the process of transitioning towards Ansible, because with Zul using Ansible now, people have over time learned Ansible, and it's better suited for our purposes. But anyway, if I go here, I can see there's a Puppet Graph YAML repo. So if I go here, I'm gonna see things. So it creates, it installs Graph YAML, it sets up the config, and then okay, so it's not a cron. So it runs Grafana dashboard with the config from the project configuration files. And then it's just an exec, right, in Puppet. So exec is just like a raw command, right? And so the funny thing is that we have a node that's called Puppet Master, but there's no Puppet on that node. It used to have a Puppet Master, but it's no longer the case. But it still carries the name. So there's actually, when I'm saying that we're in the process of like transitioning away from Puppet, so that's part of it. So the Puppet Master node has a series of crons, and then it's actually an Ansible playbook that will end up doing the equivalent of a Puppet apply on each node, like standalone. So there's no like Puppet master or anything. So going by this logic, I would say that every 30 minutes or so, there's going to be an Ansible playbook that will fire, that will run this Puppet module on the node. We have some Yera configuration and sites.pp and stuff like that. But there's all of our components are not. It's really like infrastructure as code, and it's even like better than that because of the code review process. So when I want to change something, I change it in the Puppet module or in the config, or I do it really through code review. It gets tested, integration tested. It gets reviewed by my peers or by other contributors, and then it merges. It gets picked up by eventually the Puppet master node, and then it runs with the updated code, and then it spreads all over the place. So really, like all of what I'm showing you today is in a Git repo somewhere. And if you're curious about other things, I'm happy to share later on. For the time being, going back to the slides. So I've shown you what you have seen, but I haven't shown you what you haven't seen, right? Because you haven't seen it. So there's a lot of stuff here. I mean, we have more than 100 servers just for the purpose of hosting the different services that OpenStack offers. We have neighbors upstairs. So we have AFS distributed storage. We have Cacti for monitoring. We have docs.openstack. We have Ethercalc, which is like Google Spreadsheets, but open source and nice. We have Etherpad, which is a kind of the same thing, but for a Notepad. We have mailing lists. We have large Logstash clusters. You remember I told you about 14 terabytes of logs. So we have a large Logstash cluster. So the OpenStack CI is spread across different OpenStack providers and different regions. So we have a regional distribution mirrors in every location. So if I go in mirror.dfw.racks.openstack.org, I'm going to see all of our. We try to rely as least as possible to external sources. We mirror the different mirrors, and at the same time, it saves on the latency and speed performance and stuff like that. So you're gonna find all the repos, all the distributions that we use. Yes, good, okay. Sorry, I was distracted for a moment. So we have those mirrors. We have a paste bin service. We have we have a lot of those services that we're hosting, and I said that we had unlimited time, but I'm not going to show you all of those. But the point is that we have a lot of these services, and we're actually a pretty small team of volunteer contributors. It's not my full-time job personally to work on the OpenStack infra. I help as much as I can, of course. But at the end of the day, while I consider myself accountable for the uptime of these different services, if I don't have the time, I don't have the time, and it's not going to wake me up at night if there's no Nagios or Sensu or whatever that's going to ring on my cell phone because those services are down. It's like best effort by a passionate and motivated team of contributors. And another reason why I'm showing you this is that it has nothing to do with OpenStack, right? So something that people tell me sometime is that, well, I can't contribute to OpenStack infra because I know nothing about OpenStack. Like I don't operate on OpenStack Cloud, or I've never sent a patch to Nova or anything. You don't need to know Nova. You don't need to know OpenStack. Those are, the log server is a file server, right? It's a file server with a bunch of storage and a web server on top of it. And there's a lot of services like that. And sometimes you go down a rabbit hole and you say, oh, and again, in the spirit of making our lives easier, when you see something that you see could be improved, you send a patch, and then it's really iteratively like that. You're gonna make things better, not just for you, but for the whole community. So I think that's it's really great and it's valuable because you're not, you know, you're not selling a product. You're not going to make money off of this, but the value is just, you just made people more productive as a result, for example. So I think that's really great. So, I just wanted to highlight some numbers. I'm pretty much done with the live demo part. So just short slides from now on, promise. So for the OpenStack Queens release, just in terms of scale, what this means, we had 1,700 contributors from a lot of our organizations, over 100,000 patch sets. So this thing that triggers a bunch of Zool jobs. So there was over 100,000 of those. So even with a pessimistic estimate, you could say that we've ran over 1,000 jobs, 100,000 jobs. And then what's interesting as well is that for each commit, so a commit is a patch set that ends up being merged to Git repo. So there's actually a ratio of about 5 patch sets to each commit. So it means that you don't get it right the first time, and actually almost no one does, right? So there's 5 patch sets for every commit. So don't be shy sending patches to us. And there's been more than 100,000 reviews. So people care and people do reviews. So that's that. And this data is off of Stackalytics. Again, something that's public. It's just stats on various metrics in the OpenStack community. Some numbers for the OpenStack infrastructure. So almost 2,000 projects that have ever been hosted by the OpenStack infrastructure. A lot of those have been retired or archived by now. Projects that are either no longer maintained or no longer relevant. We currently have 7 different OpenStack cloud providers that are donating resources for the node pool and infrastructure services. That's across 12 regions. So we have, in Montreal, we have Vexhost, we have Internap as well. We have OVH that is donating resources, and that's just in Montreal. We have Rackspace in the United States. OVH is also contributing from Europe. We have City Cloud, and we have a lot of these different providers. And if you want, if you're part of an organization that operates an OpenStack cloud, you can reach out to the OpenStack infra team. Even if it's 10 nodes, I mean, it's 10 nodes, right? It's going to be 10 additional concurrent jobs. And if you contribute, there's a number, I believe it's either like 50 or 100 nodes. You can have your logo like on the website that says, this person, this company is really helping OpenStack. So we have about over 100 different management servers for the different services I told you about. We have up to 1,000 nodes that we run. At peak, we can run over 20,000 jobs every day. And on an average month, we'll have more than 300,000. I have problems with numbers today. And just for the sake of numbers, I don't know if you've ever run an FSCK on a 14 terabytes volume. So anyway, we had to do that recently, and we ended up like starting from scratch because it was dead in the middle of an OpenStack release, actually. Not a release, but a milestone, which is we're still tagging releases for a milestone. So if the log server is down, all the jobs are failing because none of the jobs can upload their logs, right? So we had to find some solution, and that solution was to start off of a new volume and just format everything. Thankfully, Cinder has a feature that allows you to clone volumes. So what we actually did is that we cloned all of the volumes that we had onto another virtual machine, and then if there was anything to recover from that, we had access to the data because the FSCK eventually finished and everything. So who's part of the OpenStack infrastructure team? It's regular people. It's not just I'm more of a sysadmin type profile, but there's people from universities that are contributing. There's a person with a doctor prefix on his name, so you know you don't need to be an OpenStack operator to contribute to infra, and that's really the point that I want to get across tonight. If you see a typo in the documentation or in the slide, you can send a patch for it, and you'll be thanked for it. So, I mean, by all means, do it. And then, I kind of went through this already, but we do a lot of things, but on top of everything, it's best effort. There's no pressure. You do what you can, and whatever you can do is appreciated. So even if it's just a small patch, that's great. If you can convince your organization to contribute full time to the OpenStack infra, that's awesome. I mean, by all means, try it. But if you can't convince them, I mean, you can still send a patch every now and then. So the fact that we need help in OpenStack infra was actually formalized by the technical committee. So we need people to help us. We're a fairly small team, so and actually one of the challenges that we have right now, and this is not a good spot to talk about it here, but a lot of our core team is in North America. So we have we have someone that is in Australia, we have someone that is in Europe. So that there's some follow the sun action going on here. But if you know someone like in another time zone far away that is willing to help, would certainly welcome that. So this was a talk about adding this talk to the OpenStack infra meeting, and that's it. I'm done. If you want to talk to us, we're on the OpenStack infra channel on IRC. We have a mailing list as well. You can expect the OpenStack infrastructure team to be at the OpenStack PTG and the OpenStack Summit. I'll be going to Vancouver. I'm actually part of so I'm going to be doing a similar talk in Vancouver, actually, shorter, hopefully, but to try and teach people how to contribute to OpenStack infrastructure. I got to give credits to Fungi, so Jeremy Stanley. I actually forked this presentation off of him. The rabbit hole parts are all mine, but the rest of the good content was from Fungi. Thanks, that's it.
Thanks, David. Good job, man. Well, thanks everyone for coming. We're gonna wrap up. There's still some pizza, some beer, so like feel free to chat and maybe pick up a chair and put it in the in the locker. So yeah, so we'll probably target June for the next meetup. Following the OpenStack Summit. So if there's anything good, like good stuff we got from the event, we'll bring it over and make sure we get a good meetup before the summer kicks off and we come back in the fall. So thank you.
Did you check if my patch passed, Pascal? Oh, nice.